2020 meeting of the Radnor Township Zoning Hearing Board to order. First, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Feel free to join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Taking things just slightly out of order here, Mr. Brosman, I see that you're with us this evening. Good evening. We have received correspondence from you with respect to appeal number 3060. You are requesting a continuance, is that correct?
Yes, good evening. George Brosman here. I am requesting a continuance.
Okay. I don't see any reason not to grant the continuance. You've extended our time periods and you've requested to be Appeal 3060 to be added to the October agenda. So unless there's objection from the members of the board for that request, I would grant that without further discussion.
No
Okay,
objection.
Okay, so on 3060, we will take that up in October.
Thank you, and I'm going to sign off.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, back to the normal order of things. Returning to the agenda, appeal number 3067, the applicant Eric and Laura Jansen, property located at 126 East Beechtree Lane and zoned R2 residential. The applicant is seeking relief from sections 28016 and 28017 of the code pertaining to accessory structure height, side yard, and rear yard setbacks. Applicant is proposing to reconstruct a garage 1 foot from the side property line and to maintain the pre-existing non-conforming rear yard setback of 2.14. And as members of the board will recall, this matter, hi Jamie, how are you this evening? Thanks, glad you were able to get in. This matter was continued from the July 20th, 2020 meeting. And before we return to the applicant, well, why don't we return to the applicants? Mr. and Mrs. Jansen, I believe I see you on one of the tiles here. Yes, good evening. Is there any update you would care to share with the board at this time regarding your application?
Yes. I sent a very small PowerPoint. Do you have that?
Do not. Kevin, do you have that?
No, that's the one from the original meeting. The other day, I sent like just a 3-slide thing to Ian. That's it. Okay. So.
Excuse me, did you want me to re-swear her?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just remind, I don't recall if we, Mr. Jansen, did we swear you in last time?
No, I was out of town.
Oh, okay, Norma, if you could swear Mr. and Mrs. Jansen in, that would be great.
That would be a good idea. If you'll both just raise your right hands. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And then just state your name and spell it for me, please.
Go ahead.
Laura Jansen, Janson.
Thank you.
And Eric, ERIC.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So
this picture was in our last set of slides as well, and it just shows the area in outline where we want to expand our garage from what's basically a barn to a 3-car garage in the original footprint where it once stood. And as you said, the building would be 1 foot from the property, the side property yard line, and it would maintain the pre-existing 2-foot setback from the rear. And just to remind you, the building had a fire in the 1940s, and instead of rebuilding, they just cut it where you see it cut there on the left to remove the damaged portion. There was an issue, there were objections raised by our neighbors at the last meeting. It's the two neighbors that border our back property line. Their issues kind of boil down to the view, that they felt the garage would block their view. They also raised stormwater retention issues, which we think would actually become better because we would incorporate stormwater controls, which currently don't exist at all. Our neighbors on the east property line sent us a letter in support of our project. To address the issue of the view, in discussions with our neighbors in July, we offered concessions, which were ultimately not accepted, or at least they were not enough to get their support to widen the garage. So we reached out to them recently in preparation for this meeting to see if they were open to discussing it more. The bottom line is that they offered support if we were to, quote, rebuild the garage with the current location and dimensions, but we will continue to express our concerns about the impact on our backyards of a larger structure. One change that occurred since the July meeting is that, and I had a picture of this, for some reason it didn't go. But anyway, if you look at that grill way on the left side of that picture, there was an 85-foot maple tree that stood on our driveway property line, which fell down in a recent storm. So it was quite tall, and from the backyard neighbor, that pinkish house you see behind through the trees, it fell. So like there's a lot more sky view now from the neighbors looking north, I guess it is, than there used to be. So that's just kind of a changed condition. So slide 2, somebody can go to that. That's the desired location of our garage. It shows where it was where it originally stood, basically, between where it says existing garage and the hatched area is where we want to expand by 15 feet. This option utilizes the existing impervious surface. It kind of maximizes the use of that. And if under this scenario, our total impervious surface would end up 118 square feet under the maximum allowable for our property. This option would not require widening of our driveway, and thus we would not incur paving costs. And the location of the garage would be historically correct and aesthetically pleasing from the street view and in relation to the house. It takes advantage of space that is unusable, and it's consistent with nearly every garage in the neighborhood, probably all of the original ones, where you drive straight down the driveway into the garage. The next slide shows an alternate location, which I think you encouraged us to look at. So if we were to place the garage 10 feet from the side property line, but continue the 2-foot setback from the rear property line, to achieve the garage width that we wanted for 3 cars, we would have to, so we could expand the current building 6 feet to the left, but then we'd have to go 9 feet to the right. That scenario imposes some hardships. One is to access the garage bay on the far right, we would have to widen the asphalt driveway by about 320 square feet. That plus additional building area adds up to a total of 802 square feet of impervious surface. That would take us over our allowed impervious area for our property by 261 square feet. Secondly, expanding the driveway would require that we cover a garden bed with asphalt and incur additional costs to pave the area. We received an estimate on this, although it's very rough, and it would add at least $3,000 to the cost of the project. 3, expanding the garage 9 feet to the right along the border with the Delphiners, one of the 2 neighbors who didn't want their view affected, would likely displease them even more than our original proposal. 4, aesthetically unpleasing, extending the garage 9 feet to the right would place the corner of the garage only 2 feet from the very center of our backyard, so that when we look out our kitchen window, which is in the middle of our house, we would be looking at the garage instead of it being in the corner of our property like most garages are. Also, placing the garage more into our backyard and adding impervious where there was grass removes part of the usable backyard area for recreation and kids' play area. So just in summary, we are very rooted to this area. We care a lot about the neighborhood, its historic significance, and staying true to the architecture. We hope we've demonstrated the hardship that would be imposed by moving the garage away from the side property line and consider the view that the neighbors are concerned about. We want you to consider that the view they're concerned about could easily be obstructed by planting 1 or 2 cryptomeria trees.
Chairman Riley, can we have this one marked as well? This PowerPoint, we marked, the last exhibit last time was A6, and it also was a PowerPoint, so.
Okay, so, thank you, Solicitor Economides. We'll mark this as A7 and then A7-1 for slide 1, A7-2 for slide 2, A7-3 for slide 3, and A7-4 for slide 4. Mr. and Mrs. Jansen, so I can understand where you've come out. You are continuing to request the garage in the original location and requesting the relief that was requested in the original application. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And given the passage of time, you may have to indulge the board a couple questions that you've answered before. But in terms of the requirements under Pennsylvania law for the granting of a variance, you need to show, because you're asking for a variance as opposed to simply requesting to extend or expand an existing non-conforming structure. You need to show unnecessary hardship as that concept is understood in Pennsylvania law, which is typically some characteristic or condition on the property that prevents you from fully using the property for its intended purpose, which in this case, given the zoning classification, is a residential use. So you've considered downsizing the garage, sliding the garage to another location, and ultimately concluded that your preference is to move forward with the original request as originally presented, right? I'm not meaning to put words in your mouth. I just want to make sure we summarize it for the board so we understand what's being requested.
And last time I went into the fact that we want to park just 2 cars in the garage, and my husband does a lot of woodworking, and he wants basically to use 1 bay for woodworking, a wood shop.
Right. Okay, great. Are there any other questions from the board for Mr. and Mrs. Jansen before we move on? Any other members?
Yeah, Eric, Laura, just so I recall, you are tearing down the existing structure, correct?
Yes, we would.
In any case, right?
Yeah,
Under
in
any
case-
alternative that you just.
Unless we had to move it out by 10 feet from the back property line, then we would just try to rebuild it,
Yeah,
but there is a lot of damage, like termite damage around the base of it. So we would prefer to knock it down. That would be more stable.
there's also quite a bit of fire damage still there. They basically put it in mothballs.
Right.
A number of the rafters are charred, so it's really not structurally ideal.
So,
And I'm sorry, when was the fire? 1940s?
In the 40s.
So it is. So it has stood for 60 years after the fire.
Yeah, it's not going to fall down.
have you looked at, I'm trying to figure out how far can you move this to the left? And that would be to the west, I guess, without
Well,
having to,
If you look at the sketch 2, it can go 6 feet to the left before it hits the 10-foot setback.
Is that what you were asking, George?
yeah. And if you move
Yeah,
this,
yeah, George, I'm sorry. I'm
that's-
not sure which direction we're talking about. So when you say the left, you mean away from the property line
correct.
that the original application was going to build right up against, correct?
That's right. That's
Okay,
what I'm asking about.
Thank you. Thanks.
And is there some distance you can move it over to the left without having to put in, additional driveway and
I think it needs to be right.
more coverage?
Oh, okay. So based on the drawing to the left is what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, there isn't actually, because the edge of the driveway goes right to the edge of the garage. So if we were to go to the left, we'd have to add impervious. And the turning radius there doesn't allow, if there's a car in the driveway, you can't go over any further.
Yeah. Not to make any suggestions as to what you might want to do with this, and certainly not conditions, but I was just curious, are you adding is there going to be like a second floor to this?
We haven't done anything design-wise. We are, as part of the application, we're requesting to keep the existing height. There is a second floor there now. We haven't, and we're trying to find what the building envelope would be, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, I mean, is there any consideration of, making this basically a 2-car or 2.5-car garage with, possible workshop upstairs, or something to get it further away from that property line on the east?
Yeah, the workshop upstairs doesn't work just because of the logistics of moving machinery up and down, and also projects and wood and everything else. It's just not that wouldn't be a scenario that would work.
Okay.
And I think we want to keep the second floor because that's what was originally there. And part of our desire is to make it architecturally like what was there before.
And I think there was some discussion last time on the addition part on the east border to lower that roof line somewhat to possibly.
Well, that was a concession I had offered to the neighbors, which they did not accept. So now I'm just going back to Plan A, which is just to recreate what's there at the 22-foot height all the way across.
Right.
Okay.
That's the only question I had.
Thanks, George. Rich or Jamie, any questions?
I have a quick question. It's Jamie.
Hey,
Sorry, my memory doesn't serve me for the last time we talked about this. In terms of consistency with the character of the neighborhood, can we go back to the houses that are similar and the garages they had? This was a discussion. I think there was a comparison of 2 that were nearby I think they were double garages.
Yeah, there were a bunch. Do you have the other PowerPoint?
Thank you. We're just waiting for it to come up. Gotcha.
any luck, Ian?
Bear with me for one second. I have to relocate.
Okay. All right. All right.
Maybe you can move on to someone else's question. We can come back.
Rich, do you have any questions? All right. Bear with us for a sec. Thanks. Jamie, do you have your file from the July meeting?
I do. I have to pull up the pictures and go through. Give me one
Okay.
second. Yep.
Well, the pictures were probably in the package you got in the mail.
Yep. They're not in the recent package.
Correct. That's correct.
Yes. Hold on. Let me grab it.
I could also share my screen if that would help.
That'd be fast.
Oh, sure. Yeah. What? Yeah. I'm sorry. What? Yeah. Why don't we do that?
Great.
So why don't you get to those pictures?
I'm trying to look at the impact it would make to cover that open space that the neighbors are opposed to versus what neighbors in the area normally would have.
So do you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So I showed the streets I walked on. Our house is, I guess that spot right there.
Hmm.
I just literally went 2 blocks.
Okay.
So there's this one. You can, it's kind of, you kind of squint to see the garage back there.
And that's a 2-car garage?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a relatively new one.
Okay.
That's an original one. This is a closer up view of that one.
Okay, and this is, if you can go back quick. So that's one garage with for one family, or is it, I'm just looking at the fence to try to understand.
Yeah, that's one family. They just have their fence that runs into the middle of it.
Got it. Okay, so that's a large structure. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. There's this one right down the street.
Do you know the address? So we can kind of get a sense of
This is
proximity to your property.
132.
Well, it'd be 2.
It's like 1, 2, 3 houses down.
Yeah, but it's
Okay. So an eighth of a mile, less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the next block.
Right. And then go down. There's the picture. There's a close up of that one.
Oh yeah, so here's a close up of that one. They're all about the same size as what we're asking for.
Yeah.
In fact, that one's very similar. It's
Was
got
just
the
gonna
same kind of roof line.
Is that similar to your plan?
Well, we don't have a plan yet, but I think that's what ours originally similar. Like the roof line is similar, right?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not.
Go to. It's more similar to that one.
This one happens to be Mr. Nagel's.
Mm-hmm.
So our roof line is like that one.
We don't have a gambrel roof on ours. It's just a.
Oops.
I don't remember. George doesn't have a gambrel roof either. So it's more similar to this one because it had dormers If you go up into the second floor, you can see where the dormers were that were burned, and they just covered them over. So but
This one,
the sizes are all about 3-car. A lot of the older ones are 3-car size. Some of the newer ones aren't.
is this a newer one or an
This one's a newer one.
Oh, okay.
That's the last 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, so those are all the ones. I mean, I could have done more because there's
No, no.
more, but I just
It's
gave those examples and they're very close.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Rich, any questions, or we will close out the questions for Mr. and Mrs. Jansen?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Jansen. At this point, since the meeting began, we've received 3 emails, 3 additional emails in the public comment line. Kevin, if I could just confirm with you that Norma is provided with copies of these letters for the file. I hesitate to read all 3 of these into the record if I don't have to. But
Mr. Chairman, I can provide them to her without a problem. I have not previously.
Okay, great. Does that sound like a plan, Solicitor Economides?
Yes, absolutely. If you're taking notice of them and putting them in the record.
Okay. All right. So I will identify each of the 3 letters, one of which is in support of the application and 2 of which are in opposition. The first email is received from Paula Ball and reads as follows. Well, I'm not going to read it into the record. Ms. Ball is in favor of the application. She lives at 417 Woodland Avenue in Wayne. She is confident. She's writing in support of the Jansen's application. She is confident that the addition as proposed will be architecturally appropriate and pleasing to the neighborhood, and she wholeheartedly supports the application for relief in this matter. The second email is from Mr. Rick Bushnell and is in opposition to the expanded application request that's in front of us. Mr. and Mrs. Bushnell would support the reconstruction of the garage on its current footprint in its current dimensions, but is concerned that that anything larger than that would be unreasonable. He also notes right, and he would support the reconstruction of the structure on the same footprint and height that it currently stands, even though it is currently constructed in the setback. The third letter email is from Tracy Delfiner on behalf of Tracy and Michael Delfiner. Again, this is an email that is in opposition to the application, that they were not agreeable to the proposals that the Jansens had made in terms of the size of the property here, and they indicate that the Jansens wrote to the Delfiners on Sunday, indicating they would do what they agreed to 2 months ago, but they would not change the size of the building at issue. And the remainder of the email goes on to list additional reasons why the Delfiners are in opposition. So with that, I don't believe there have been any other online comments while I've been going through those 3. So I will now close. I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Jansen, would you like to move your additional exhibits into the record so that they can be part of the official record, the PowerPoint from this evening?
Yes, we would.
Yes.
Okay, without objection. All right, with that out of the way, I would ask for a motion regarding the application so that we can get started. I would note, however, for the record, that notwithstanding the fact that the excuse me, the published notice indicates that relief is being requested from 280-16 and 280-17. Those are not the correct section references. Those refer to limitations in the R1 zoning district. This property is located in the R2 zoning district. So the appropriate sections that relief should have been requested for would be 280-21 and 280-22 relating to height restrictions and accessory structures respectively. So it's the same relief, it's just the wrong section references. So with that out of the way, also I'd entertain a motion to get discussion started. All right. In the absence of that, I will make the motion. I would move that the board deny the request for application for relief as stated in the application materials and testimony that have been presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Board discussion.
Sure, John, I'll go first. This is Rich Weitzman.
Okay.
Hey, I have a number of concerns. Well, maybe I should start with what I would support. You know, the existing rear setback, I'd be in favor of granting the variance there. My biggest concern with this is that they're proposing to tear down the existing structure, and they haven't provided us any sort of definitive plan. So even if I was inclined to support, which I do, there are certain elements here that I could support, but I don't know what I'd be voting for. And it's for that reason that I'm going to vote in favor of denying at this point. It strikes me that they're a little premature because they're not proposing to us exactly what they want to do. It's if we can build within this footprint, then we'll figure it out. I'd like to know exactly what it is that they're proposing to build.
Jamie or George?
Yeah,
George?
John, I think as those pictures pointed out, you know, virtually every driveway up in that North Wayne area with a garage in the back, it's lined up as a straight entrance. So I think that's consistent with, you know, the neighborhood, the area. I think you know, there was originally a building there, and I understand it was many, many years ago, and it would be considered a new non-conforming building, not the extension of existing one. However, you know, that is, you know, the typical accessory building structure in that part of Wayne. So I think it's consistent with that. And, you know, you know, I'm not totally clear on what the hardship is other than the existing position on the property. And that's where the original garage was. So I think I would be in favor of granting the relief.
Jamie?
I'm having a hard time not having plans in a similar position to Rich, knowing the neighbors oppose it and not understanding the exact plan of what this will look like. I agree with George. It's consistent to the neighborhood, and I believe there's value in building it, but because you are tearing down and not showing hardship other than where it's placed, I'd like more information, and I agree. I think it's premature. it is a shame to have to spend the money. We've heard this before where people don't want to spend the money on the plans prior to coming to us because you're not sure if you're going to lay it out and it would be approved. But I think having more information would make me more comfortable. I'm always concerned when neighbors are unhappy. So that's where I am.
Okay. This is a tough case. While, perhaps historically placement of the garage in the location that has been requested might have been appropriate. The position of the garage there has not been there for a significant period of time. And while I can at least intellectually understand the notion of moving the new garage back to the side property line, not unlike the way it was in years past, I'm struggling with the issue of hardship as it is understood in Pennsylvania under Pennsylvania law. There are any number of ways to have at least a two-car garage constructed on this property, which would not require a variance. There would be continuing, existing nonconformities, but there would not be, the need for the variance that has been requested. The desire to have a three-car garage is not a hardship under Pennsylvania law. It would be nice to have a three-car garage. I would love a three-car garage. I think, to the extent that the property supports the appropriate placement of a three-car garage on the property, that is something that obviously many property owners have. But it's not a sufficient basis for us to grant the zoning variance. And I think it can be demonstrated that a two-car garage can be replicated roughly in the approximate location that the current structure sits, plus some space on the side away from the side property line that is causing the neighbors so much discomfort. That would satisfy the property owner's reasonable expectations, reasonable use of their property. The failure to grant this variance does not deny the property owner the full enjoyment of their property, as the guidance from Pennsylvania courts over the years has told us. So for that reason, I'm also going to vote to deny the application. So why don't we call the official vote? All in favor of the motion which denies the application, please, that denies the application. Please we'll do it by roll. Jamie, are you in favor or against denial of the application?
In favor of denial.
Rich?
In favor.
George?
Against denial.
And I am in favor of denial. So the application is denied 3 votes to 1. There are things that can be done here that don't require a variance, and I hope that you're able, Mr. and Mrs. Jansen, able to work something out that fits in the rules and also satisfies what you're looking to do. So thank you for your patience through the continuance, and thank you for your participation this evening. Okay, Appeal 3071. The applicant, Julie and Timothy Brown, located at 516 Arbordale Road and zoned R3 residential. The applicant is seeking relief from section 280-27C of the code to allow the placement of a shed to be closer than the required 10 feet to the side and rear property lines. Is Mr. Brown, I believe I see you.
Yes. I'm
Okay.
here. My wife, I'm sorry, had to step out for back to school night. So she does apologize, or she was planning to be here.
No problem. Norma, would you swear Mr. Brown in, please?
Yes. Mr. Brown, if you'll raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I swear.
And state your full name for me, please.
Timothy Brown.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brown, thank you for participating this evening. What can we do for you?
I'm seeking relief, unknown to me, in the back of, at the end of our driveway. We placed a shed because we don't have a garage. From the previous owner, there was no garage, no storage. We have 5 children with bikes and everything else. So we had nowhere to store them, and we were looking to put in a storage. So we placed the shed, worked with our neighbor that we share the driveway with. They had no issue with it. Thus why I did not get a permit, not realizing I thought that was for conflict and not if everyone was in agreement. That would be fine. It was if it was in conflict, but yet the permit would allow me to do it based off of law. But we were in agreement, no issues, and I was advised that I had to get a permit. I submitted for the permit, and then I was notified of the issue with the shed being next to the, too close to the fence line or property line. As you see, if you see in the pictures, if I can't come off 10 feet. If I do, it's in the middle of my space between property line and house at the driveway. There's not an issue with the impervious space. Actually, before I bought this house, that used to be the driveway. As you can see in one of the pictures from the driveway, my neighbor's is still a driveway. It was a pull in and turn around the backyard to go into the garage that was on the bottom floor.
Okay, Mr. Brown, I'm sorry, if I could just jump in for 1 second, and I'm sorry I didn't do this earlier, a little housekeeping. For the record, there are a number of exhibits that were included with the application.
Yes.
Exhibit A1 is going to be the application itself.
Okay.
Exhibit A2 is a one-page diagram of the residence with the address 516 Arbordale Road, Wayne, PA 19087 in the left margin. Exhibit A3 will be a stapled collection of letters of approval from neighbors.
And those were all adjoining neighbors that literally that touch our property line.
Right. Exhibit A4 are, well, there are 2 photographs that are clipped to a page that I have, one of which was just up on the screen.
Yes.
And the other of which appears to be the rear of the shed in question. And Exhibit A5 is a printout of the real estate records indicating title ownership in the applicant.
Correct.
As well as, oh, I'm sorry, there's some other stuff here too, an assessment and a real estate.
That was just proof of,
tax bill. Yep.
proof of ownership. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay. So I'm sorry. So return to thanks and return to the your
Actually,
discussion
on
of
the
pictures.
photo that you see here, I can't go, if I move 10 feet off the fence line, I'm in the middle of the yard, and I'm even then close to the house. So I was trying look aesthetically and just following the driveway line, and with no issues, that's where I went ahead and placed it, not knowing what I've learned in the last 3 months. And thus you can see also the pathway there is not finished because I stopped to make sure I got permission to keep going forward, because I'm not quite sure where we're going to go.
Okay. And
it's just the side. It's actually the rear has 20 or 30 feet back there between the back of the shed and the back property line. So it's really just the side.
is the location of the shed in proximity to the driveway important to your use of the shed?
It is, because there is drainage back there and you'll see that on the side, you see some grass planted there. It's grown in now. That area was where water would come down the driveway through my yard. You can see some stones. It was always wet as could be there. So if I put the shed anywhere else, not right on the driveway, to get bikes, to get basket or balls, to get anything out of it, you're walking through sloppy ground. So that's where it's 6 inches of sitting on stone for drainage so that it's not all wet. That's why it's raised slightly, just to make sure that the kids can go in and out of the garage or shed to get stuff, to do whatever they're doing, and to store stuff.
Okay, and the collection of letters from your neighbors, Mr. Brown,
Yeah.
could you give the board an indication of where those folks live in relation to
Yes,
your
there's
property?
actually a map that was there. It was up in the beginning.
Yep.
Yep. So I sort of highlighted who they are. Also, I'm sorry, at the time, it's across the street. They see it. Melissa and Jeff Adams sit next to us. Kim and Preston are behind us. And then Kelly and Rob are also behind us. Anne Marie and Mike are on their other corner. And our other neighbor is Tom and Jody Masterson. They've also included. So all those letters prove of where the shed's located.
Okay, and the Mastersons are on the papers you submitted, but they're not on this exhibit here, but
I was getting ready to submit, and then they were able to get it back to me, so I wasn't sure. So that's where the issue.
So they're parcel 158.
They're 158. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, 158.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay. Any questions from board members at this point?
Yeah, I just had a question on that letter from your other neighbor. I mean, are there issues with runoff and so forth from your property, or?
Every single house in that area of Oakford, or to the back of our property line, filled with water. So basically, if we can go back to one of the photo facing the front of the shed, when it rains, actually what I've done makes it even better for my neighbor to the Mastersons, is the water comes through from the other side through the Adams yard, around the fence line. And if you see there's small holes there where the pipe's going, that was simply laid there where water normally ran by the course. So that's not redirecting it. It's not accelerating anything. It's simply taking the water from my front driveway, allowing it to go run the natural course, which used to be a French train that stopped working. And it puts it in the middle of my yard, and then it runs through my yard to the neighbors, and then into the creek that's on their side. So it's not altering, propelling, or if anything, it's throttling the water to get through to the backyard in the middle of the backyard, which then allows it to disperse throughout my backyard and then goes into theirs. We've had numerous storms since while waiting, and there's been no issues that were pumping more water into anyone's neighbor or anyone's yard.
Well, I get the relief being granted, I guess, is just for the 10-foot setback.
Correct.
If there are issues with impervious cover, obviously there are requirements under the zoning code.
Yeah, I'm at 21% with all of this, with this addition. So I think I can go up to 35. So I'm still well below that part, if that's a question, or if you needed to know that. It comes up to about 21 to 22% impervious, where I believe I'm allowed up to 30. So that's not, I'm not worried. I don't think that's an issue for that I'm concerned with. I think I'm underneath.
That's all I had.
Okay, Rich or Jamie?
No questions for me, John. Thanks.
None for me either.
Okay. Mr. Brown, this is the point where you would usually request that the exhibits that you've provided to us be entered into the record. Would you like to do that?
I would, thank you. Please.
Okay, without objection, thank you. Kevin, I don't see any email from the public comment line. Is that correct? Hold on. Okay. All right. I'm assuming then, Kevin, there's nothing, I don't see anything in my mailbox. So,
Correct, Mr. Chairman. There's nothing that I've seen either.
okay, great. Would someone like to make a motion with respect to the granting of the requested relief?
I'll make a motion to grant the requested relief.
Second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Rich. Any board discussion on this? Okay, then I'll just call the vote. And we'll go roll call fashion for Norma's benefit. Jamie, are you in favor or opposed to granting the relief?
In favor.
Rich?
In favor.
George?
In favor.
And I'm also in favor, so that's 4-0. The requested relief has been granted, consistent with the materials entered into the record. Mr. Brown, good luck with that. Thanks for participating.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, appeal number 3074. The applicant, Sean, I'm going to butcher this name, I'm sorry, Sean and Bernadette Briddy, property
Close.
located, what, I'm sorry?
That was pretty close.
Okay.
Friday, yeah.
Which, Sean?
Yeah, you got that.
I got Sean right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Property located at 152 Biddulph Road and zoned R3 residential. The applicant seeks a variance from section 280-25C and 280-101B to expand their existing non-conforming garage into the front yard setback. Is the applicant ready to proceed?
We
I
are.
am.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Al Fiscaldo. I'm counsel for the applicant.
Hi, good evening. Could you spell that for our
course.
court reporter?
Yes, F as in Frank, U, S as in Sam, C-A-L, D as in David, O.
And your
Great.
first name,
Alfred.
Alfred?
Yes. Thank you.
Great. Okay, what do we have?
Good evening. This is a dimensional variance to expand an existing garage further into the front yard setback. I have two witnesses tonight, Mr. Bridey, who you've met, and Ann Ledger, our architect. At the board's pleasure, I'd be happy to present an offer of proof, have my witnesses adopt the testimony to streamline the proceedings tonight, and then the board could follow up with any questions. At the board's pleasure, I'm happy to do a traditional direct as well.
Why don't we go with direct, please? Thanks.
Sure. So I presented the board with an exhibit package of 11 exhibits. The application, a parcel map, an aerial, photographs just to locate the property. Our site plan prepared by Mr. Turner at Exhibit 4. Exhibit 11, which I sent to Mr. Kachansky yesterday, is a revised site plan, which shows a revised front setback line. The property it's an interior lot as defined by the zoning code. As such, the front yard, the 35-foot front yard, is modified by a multiplier of 1.4. So the front yard requirement in this district, the R3 district for this interior lot is 49 feet. Doesn't do much to affect the application. The garage almost entirely sat within the front yard setback before. Now that front yard setback is just even further towards the house and now encompasses the entire garage. But just for the sake of accuracy, we had that exhibit revised, and it's now Exhibit 11. But at Exhibit 5 are photographs of the property. Exhibit 6 are plans and renderings prepared by Ms. Ledger. Mr. Bridey visited with and sat down with each of his neighbors that surround his property or join his property at 136, 150, and 154 Biddulph Road. In the packet at Exhibit 7 are letters of support from each of those neighbors without condition. Then the proof of mailing deed and Ms. Ledger's CV are at Exhibits 8, 9, and 10. If I could just briefly orient the board to the property, and then we'll turn to Mr. Bridie. Mr. Meyer, if you could go to Exhibit 2. I think it's on page 22 of the packet. To fly through it. So here's a Google Maps aerial of the property, 152 Bidoff Road. You'll see that it's attached to Bidoff by a long driveway. It's a flag lot, and surrounding Bidoff Road. Surrounding the flag lot driveway is 136 Bidoff Road, which is fronts on Bidoff and is right where the Bidoff Road word is. Proceeding back towards Gulf Creek Road is 150 Bidoff, which joins Mr. Bridie's property at 152. And then on the other side of the shared driveway on Bidoff Road, fronting Bidoff Road, is 154 Bidoff Road. So 136, 150, 152, and 154 in clockwise order surrounding the driveway. And if you could go to Exhibit 3, Mr. Meyer. This is just to exemplify how heavily treed and vegetated the area is. And then we can turn to the site plan at Exhibit 4. I have to make it a little bit smaller. Just the important thing to note, just for background, if you could pull back a little bit, Mr. Meyer, on this, just so we can see the entire property. Thank you so much. You'll see that the property is heavily sloped. The contour lines are indicated, especially towards the south side or front of the property. Also, Gulf Creek runs through the back of the property. The property is heavily treed, as you'll see in the photographs we've attached as exhibits. You can see it's an oddly shaped, uniquely shaped lot, and it is a flag lot. So in terms of characteristics unique to the property that could create a hardship, the slopes throughout the property sloping heavily from front to back, south to north towards Gulf Creek Road. The trees, including a heritage tree, a 50-inch oak tree that's adjacent to the garage, between the garage and the house, preventing expansion of the garage towards the house. The house actually sits below the driveway in the garage due to the slope of the property. So any attempt to expand the garage toward the house would create a financial hardship because of the slopes. So the idea is to move the garage or expand the garage to the right towards what is characterized as the front yard. But as you look at the property, it really reads as a side yard with the house in a garage in an L-shaped orientation, and the entrance to the house through the side yard on the west side. I could have, if Mr. Bridie hasn't been sworn, if he can be sworn, I can proceed with my direct.
Yes, if I don't see him, but Mr. Bridie?
Yeah, I'm here.
If you'll raise your right hand, please, you do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And please state your full name for me.
Sean Bridie.
And spell that.
SHAWNBRIDY.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And you and your wife, Bernadette, are the owners of 152 Bidoff Road?
Correct.
Right. You were present for my presentation to the board, and do you accept that presentation as accurate and you adopt it as your own?
I do.
Okay. Sean, if we could, and Mr. Meyer, if we could use the photographs at tab 5, and Sean, maybe if you can just run the board through what these photographs show, paying attention to.
Okay. Just go through the details? Sure.
Yep. Just
All right, so this is the our driveway entrance from Bidoff Road. It's a long driveway. Obviously, it's a flag lot. So it's very difficult to actually see the house from the road. Our mailbox is on the right, and then our neighbor's mailbox is on the left. We have a shared driveway with our neighbor at 150. Go on to the next photo.
These are just looking to the left and to the right as you enter the driveway. The next photo as well.
Right, right. So just a little more detail on that. You can go to the next photo as well. Okay, so this is looking up the driveway from the base of the driveway. Again, heavily treed, very difficult to know there's a house behind, on Biddulph Road. Go to the next slide. This is at the bottom of the driveway. The driveway splits. This is our neighbor's property at 150 Biddulph Road. And our property goes to the right. And I think that'll be the next picture. Actually, this is just a kind of view off to the, if you look off to the right of our driveway before you would come onto our property. That's our neighbor's pool.
It's 154 Biddulph, which adjoins the property on the front yard side.
Correct. You go on to the next photo. Okay, so this is coming down the driveway, which splits. This is on the right. This is our house. The garage is, as you can see, is on the right here, and our house is obviously there as well. There is a steps down to the house, and there's a small garden down below. Again, because it's a steeply sloped lot, that's just the way they designed the house and the driveway. So go ahead.
And Sean, could you identify when you're finished where the heritage tree is located? Just point that out on the picture.
Yeah, you can see it kind of be above the kind of between the garage and the house. That's the heritage tree. That's an exceptionally old oak tree. It's been there for years. We have many giant trees on our property. So that's just one of them. And there are some ashes, I think, beyond that as well, right further down from the oak. So. And the garage is obviously the one we're looking to expand. And go on to the next slide. A little more view from looking at the garage and the house.
And Sean, there's a step down from there's a breezeway that connects the two buildings, but there's a step down from the garage to that.
Correct. Yeah. You can see that the grading, there's a rail on the left near the pink flowers. That's sort of the step down you have on the other side of the garage as well to get to the house. All right, there's further. Then go to the next one as well, please. Just another view of the garage.
And on the right side, Sean, is the covered in ivy. There's the fence. Actually, there's two fences, aren't there, that divide your property from 154 Biddulph? Correct.
That is correct. Yeah. So our neighbor has a white fence, and then we have a fence on that side, or there was a fence there. So.
And Sean, just to clarify, the garage expansion would go to the right side as proposed of that existing structure, and would be contiguous with the driveway that's there. There's no driveway expansion proposed, correct?
Correct. Okay, go on to the next slide. This just shows that there's trees between us and our property line. That's Mrs. Wood's property.
At 154 Biddulph.
At 154 Biddulph. And go on to the next one. This is kind of looking back up again along the property line where the driveway splits, going back up the driveway.
And Sean, the split rail fence at the end of the driveway across the driveway, that's 136 Biddulph, correct?
Correct. Yes. Okay, we can go to the next one. And this is looking at it from the back of the driveway. Again, very steep sloped lot. And the garage kind of sits above the property line. And then I think the next picture will show a little bit more detail of, I think, the oak tree. And there's the oak tree. Yeah. So And you can also see the step down going into the house from the garage. Again, so there's different, different levels we have to navigate here as well. So, and I think, is that it, Al, or is there traditional?
I think there's a couple, or just to show the slope of the property, just to get a feel for it, because unless you're there,
right,
it's hard to get a sense of just how quickly it drops off in the back.
Correct. And then I think there's maybe one or two more. And this is looking up the hill. This is Mrs. Wood's property. And it just gives you some relative distance, obviously, between the two. So. And again, this is just a close-up of how we connect the house and the stairs that need to go down to it. So.
And there's a couple more background that just there's one of the tree, then a couple more just showing your view towards Gulf Creek Road.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is we have these big ash trees as well on our property, and if on the other side of this kind of deep hill is Gulf Creek, which runs through our property as well. Yeah.
So I think that's all we need to do in terms of the picture, Sean.
Okay.
Could you, Mr. Meyer, if you could just go back to the exhibit 4, the site plan when you have a moment. But Sean, while he's doing that, could you just explain to the board, the genesis or need for this project, and why you and Bernadette, feel it's important, how you use the existing garage, what it can't be used for, and what your proposal entails.
Yeah, I mean, the existing garage is more, like many of the houses in the area, are more like a barn. It's got a wooden floor. So we couldn't put a car in there currently. It would probably fall through to the base of the garage. So it won't support any weight. It's not, even in the current dimensions, you couldn't get 2 cars in there. It's not a true 2-car garage. So the challenge is, we can only use it for storage. And then, actually the floor below it is all dirt. So it's more like a cellar than an actual garage we can use for storage. We have 2 growing boys. We have tons of, sports equipment. So right now the garage is, only housing things which can basically stay out in the cold. Really has no insulation either. So that's really the impetus for us to form a 2-car garage. We have a lot of trees around us, so we're constantly having things fall on our cars as well. That's again another reason why we want to build a garage. And our goal was also to put a room above it, so I could have an office, which is particularly relevant in these COVID-19 times, away from the noise of my children. So that was, that's really the impetus for the garage, and that's really the reason why we're here today. So,
and so just in terms of the extent of the expansion, Mr. Meyer, if you could just dial in a little closer to the structure that's proposed. So currently the edge of the garage on the right side, as you're looking at the drawing, is 19.5 feet from the property line. Correct, Sean?
That's correct.
And so you're looking to expand it, 9.5 feet towards the property line, leaving a side, or what it reads as a side yard setback, but it's really, effectively it's designated your front yard, a 10-foot. You're leaving a 10-foot yard. Correct.
Right.
I'll just point out to the board that under the zoning code, in an R3 district, where this, I point out that the yard reads as a side yard because under the R3 district, attached garages, and this is attached by a breezeway, can be within 15 feet of a side property line, and detached garages can be within 10 feet of a side yard line. So, if they remove the breezeway, which they would prefer not to do, obviously, that and this was a side yard, it would comply under the code. Unfortunately, because of way the ordinance designates yards in this instance. It's a front yard, and so that's why we're here asking for a variance. Those are all the questions I had for Mr. Bridie. If the board has any, I can also have Ms. Ledger testify about the specifics of the plan as well. She prepared a rendering, which is attached as Exhibit 6 to the package.
Mr. Fiscaldo, if I could ask Mr. Bridie to discuss any conversations that he's had with the immediate neighbors regarding the project and their reaction to the proposed project, that would be great.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to all three of the adjoining neighbors that would be closest to the garage, and they all have provided letters of support. I've shown them the plans. I went through, our proposed renovations and additions, and they've all provided letters of support, and those should be in the attached. And I think it's the number 7, Exhibit 7. So those are the three adjoining neighbors. They're all provided letters of support.
Thank you. Any other questions from the other board members for Mr. Bridie? Okay. Thank you. Mr. Fiscaldo, please continue.
Yeah, I call Ann Ledger.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Can I bring up her picture, please, so I can see her? I don't see her on the screen.
She was there a moment ago. Ann, are you still there?
I'm still. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there she is.
I'm sorry. Can we take the site plan down so I can see her when she testifies? Okay, there we go. If you'll raise your right hand, please. I'll swear you when you do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your full name, please.
Ann Ledger.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And you were on the call or on the Zoom call for my presentation to the board. Do you agree that that presentation was accurate, and do you adopt that presentation as your testimony?
Yes, I do.
And can you your resume is attached to the exhibit package at Exhibit 10. Could you tell the board what your profession is and what your relationship is to this application?
I'm a registered architect in Pennsylvania, and I was hired by the Bridies to work on the design of the garage.
And Mr. Meyer, could you pull up Exhibit 6, please? It's on page 48. There, perfect. And then you can just make it look perfect. And is this the are these elevations and plans that you prepared?
Yes, they are.
Could you please walk the board through what these plans detail?
As Sean described the existing building, it has a wood floor. It was really built more as a barn. So we're going to use the existing foundation and expand it about 9.5 feet to the right and put in a concrete floor, which is typical for a garage, with storage area in the back. You can see that little door in the east elevation. There's access to the area underneath the garage. It's a 2-car garage, and there will be an interior stair going up to a small room above the garage with a small powder room to use as an office. There's about a 3-foot change in grade from the house floor up to the garage level. So getting the stairs inside the garage was the only way to really get it to work with so many steps from the house up to the 2nd floor of the garage. I'm looking at the detail of the existing house and incorporating that in the detail of the garage. There's going to be stone veneer on the base of the garage, which is similar to what's on the current building. And there will be some kind of siding. This was just a schematic design that we came up with in initial talks. So I assume that the garage will look something like this in size.
And Ann, in terms of orienting the expansion, what considerations on regarding the property's characteristics led you to settle on this orientation?
Well, the garage doors face the driveway as they do now. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and then why you went towards the 154 Biddulph as opposed to any other direction in terms of expansion?
Well, there was only room to expand to the right. We couldn't we couldn't make it a deeper garage because of the heritage tree. And we couldn't expand it closer to the house because it would just be too difficult to get from the house to the garage.
Great.
And we're not intending to increase the area of driveway paving at all. We're just going to, the area to the right of the current garage is already paved. So we're just really using the existing driveway paving.
Great.
But it was our only option to expand to the right.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have for Ms. Ledger. If the board has any questions for her.
Any questions from board members? Okay, hearing none, please continue.
Those are all the those are all by witnesses this evening. I have no other evidence to provide to the board. I would just move my exhibits into the record at this time. You're on mute, sir.
I love Zoom. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, without objection. Kevin, are there any comments on the public line? I did not see any, but.
Mr. Chairman, I just checked in there are not.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Fiscaldi, before we let you go, for the record, to tidy things up, just if you could state the base case for hardship in this circumstance, I'd appreciate it.
Of course, as the board's aware, this is a dimensional variance request, and this is a property that has numerous unique physical characteristics that really prevent the renovation of the garage in any other direction. There's a heritage tree and slopes which block any sort of expansion towards the house. The property slopes severely to the rear towards Gulf Creek Road, preventing expansion in that direction. It's an oddly shaped lot. It's a flag lot. It's heavily treed, and so the physical characteristics of the property prevent an expansion in any other direction.
Okay, thank you. Would any of the board members like to make a motion for purposes of kicking off discussion?
Sure, I'll make the motion. It's Rich Weitzman. I would move in favor of granting the requested relief.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, just briefly. It's existing. They're already within the front yard setback. They are only seeking to use the remaining paved portion of the driveway. I liked hearing that they're going to use the existing foundation. I think that's a nice touch to it. I know it doesn't bear any relevance to what we're debating, but I like that aspect of it. And based on council's argument with respect to hardship, I'm inclined to agree, and I would support the application.
Jamie, George, any thoughts?
I'll speak up real briefly. You can't argue with what we're dealing with slope. I think that tree is beautiful and obviously in the way if we tried to put it anywhere else. And based on the hardship of the way the house is laid out, I don't think there's any other choice. I thank you for all the pictures. I think it made it much more clear for us to see there was no other place to go. So I'm inclined to approve.
Yeah, I agree with those sentiments.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote. George, are you in favor or in opposition to granting the relief?
I'm in favor.
Jamie,
Favor.
Rich?
Favor.
I'm also in favor. Mr. Bridie, now that I can handle that tricky last name, thanks for participating this evening. Good luck with your project. Hope it goes well for you.
Great, thank you so much.
Chair,
Thank you
Mr.
much for your
Chair, if I may, I would just ask counsel, this is Constantine Conamita speaking. Mr. Friscaldo, if you don't mind, I'm just going to follow up with you. I have your email address. If you could email me the PowerPoint that you submitted, that'll just help me write my opinion.
Absolutely, we'll do.
Thank you. Thank you. And good job. Good presentation, counsel.
Thank you
Great,
very much.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to appeal number 3075. The applicant Wayne Center LP, property located at 216 East Lancaster Avenue and zoned WBOD Wayne Business Overlay District. The applicant seeks a special exception pursuant to section 280-101A1 to change a non-conforming use, office for real estate company, to another non-conforming use, office for medical use. Is the applicant ready to proceed?
Yes, good evening. My name is Don Petrosa. I'm the attorney for the applicant, and I'm representing Wayne Center LP, which, as you've indicated, is the owner of the property at 216 East Lancaster Avenue, which is the subject of this application. Exhibit A1 is simply a copy of the deed to establish our standing. The property is located on the south side of East Lancaster Avenue between the TD Bank and Starbucks and the beer yard. The front portion's the Starbucks, the rear portion's the beer yard. And that's located to the east of the subject property. From late 1999 until February 28th, 2020, this property was leased by Fox and Roach LP and was used as a large real estate office, which used the trade name of Prudential Fox and Roach initially, and later became Berkshire Hathaway Homes Services, Fox and Roach Realtors, or Berkshire Hathaway for shorthand. The property is improved with a 9,390 square foot building. And I would point out that when we get to on our survey, this is our survey, Exhibit A2, I think it does indicate it's a two-story building. In fact, it's a one-story building, kind of made to look like a two-story building, but it's really only one story. And it has a 38-car parking lot, landscaping, sidewalk, and related improvements, all of which were developed for the real estate office in late 1999, leading into 2000. At the time the office use was established in 2000, the property was zoned C2 neighborhood commercial, with a small portion in the rear zoned R3. And office use was a permitted use in the C2 district. On or about July 16, 2007, the township created the Wayne Business Overlay District, or WBOD, which, as you know, is not really an overlay district, but really a separate zoning district with its own regulations. The entire property is located within the WBOD. An office use is not permitted in the WBOD except for an office located above a first floor retail use. Accordingly, the office was made non-conforming by virtue of the creation of the WBOD on July 16, 2007, and the inclusion of this property in the WBOD. Section 280-101A1 of the zoning ordinance provides that a non-conforming use may be changed to another non-conforming use by grant of special exception upon determination by the zoning hearing board that the proposed new use will be no more detrimental to its neighborhood and surroundings than is the use being replaced. Accordingly, we've requested a special exception pursuant to section 280-101A1 for the proposed medical offices, which would include a surgical suite that would have two operating rooms for plastic surgery, and an area for the sale of skincare products and health-related products is also included in the proposed use. I plan to call two primary witnesses. My first witness will be Paul Ashkenazi, Aschkenasy, who is the owner's representative. Wayne Center LP is a Pennsylvania limited partnership. Its general partner is Wayne TAC, TAC LLC, and Mr. Ashkenazi is the member of Wayne TAC LLC. Paul will testify about the existing improvements on the property and the prior use of the property as a real estate office. My second witness is Dr. Kevin J. Cross, who is a board-certified plastic surgeon who would like to locate his practice, which operates as Cross Plastic Surgery at the property. Dr. Cross will describe the proposed use on the property and why it would not have a detrimental impact on the neighborhood and surroundings. We have another person I don't think we'll need to call in our case in chief, but that's Lawrence J. Stuardi, S-T-U-A-R-D-I, who is president and CEO of MRA Group, a real estate solutions firm which serves the healthcare market as well as other markets. He is acting as a real estate advisor to Dr. Cross. I don't think we'll need to call him, as I say, as a witness, but he will be available if needed, if something pops up that he could answer for us. And with that, unless the board has any questions of me, with your permission, I would call Paul Ashkenazi.
Oh, please proceed.
Okay.
Is there a way to bring his picture up for me so I can see him?
Can you see me?
Oh, yes, I do. Okay. If you'll raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. And spell your name for me, please.
Paul, A-S-C-H-K-E-N-A-S-Y.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Proceed. Paul, what is your business address?
Blank Ashkenazi Properties, 925 West Lancaster Avenue, Bryn Mawr, PA 19010.
And are you familiar with Wayne Center LP, the applicant in this zoning application?
I am.
What is Wayne Center LP?
It's a Pennsylvania limited partnership.
And who is the general partner of the limited partnership?
Wayne Tack LLC.
And do you hold a position with Wayne Tack LLC?
I am the only member.
Okay. And are you familiar with the property at 216 East Lancaster Avenue, which is the property which is the subject of this zoning application?
I am.
And who is the owner of the subject property?
Wayne Center LP.
Now, directing your attention, we don't have to go back to show it on the screen, but A1 that we've included in our exhibit packets is a copy of the deed for the property dated January 16, 2014, showing the applicant is the owner of the subject property. Is that correct?
Yes.
And prior to January 16, 2014 transfer to Wayne Center LP, had the property been owned by the Blank family for many years?
Yes, since the late 1990s.
Okay. And as you say, you're president of Blank Ashkenazi Properties, so you're connected to the Blank
correct
successor? Okay. Now, are you familiar with the subject property and the history of the subject property?
I am.
And we have put up on the board, or Ian has put up on the board, Exhibit A2, which is appears to be a survey of the subject property prepared by Control Point Associates, Inc., dated December 6, 2013. Is that a survey that you had done?
It is.
And would you, making use of Exhibit A2, would you please describe the property and the improvements located on the property?
Sure. So the property is it consists of 1.061 acres. It's on the south side of Lancaster Avenue, located between TD Bank and the Starbucks and Beer Yard property. There's an existing 9,390 square foot building, one-story building that was formerly used as a large real estate office. There's a parking lot with 38 parking spaces, sidewalk, grass areas, landscaping, and a trash enclosure. So there's a small metal shed and some fencing and related improvements in the rear.
Okay. And while we're on the Exhibit A2, the fence is shown where the X's are and the line running perpendicular to or parallel to Lancaster Avenue.
Yes.
And there's a fairly large grass area behind the fence, which is part of this property, is it not?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we submitted photographs marked A3A through A3M with the zoning application. I apologize to the board. We kind of overdid it with the photographs. I'm sure you're already familiar with the property. But Paul, if you could just run through these, they show the surrounding properties as well as the subject property. Just indicate what the exhibit number is and what the photo shows.
So the first one, A3A, is the property to the east, the view of the Starbucks, and you can see basically the side of the east side of the subject property. And then the next photograph would be a image straight, basically from right across Lancaster Avenue, looking straight at the property, so you can see the Starbucks building to the left, and that's A3B.
Paul, that would be across the street you mentioned. That would be where the Bank of America building is located.
Yes.
Okay.
And then A3C is basically almost the same picture, just zoomed out, so you can see the relation to, and the distance to the Starbucks property to the east. And then the next one is actually just a little farther west, so it looks into the parking lot and at the building, because the building, while it has a little bit of frontage on Lancaster Avenue, is more oriented towards the drive aisle, which is in the middle. So that tower that you see, which looks like it's 2 stories, is a faux tower, and that's where the primary entrance is. Then A3E would be the TD Bank that sits to the west of the property. And you can also see some of the retaining wall and some of the parking lot on the left of the subject property.
And the drive-through, Paul, is on the east side of the TD Bank property, closest to your property.
Correct. And then the next photograph, which is A3F, is basically almost the same picture, just a little farther west. So you get a full view of the adjoining TD property. And then A3G is just an angle looking slightly more towards the east. You can see our building in the background. And obviously that's the TD Bank in the front. And I'm actually not sure. H looks like the same picture.
It's almost the same, so slightly different angle.
So, yeah, slightly different angle. And A3I is just a little further back, and you can see our building more in the background. A3J sort of gets closer to the property. This is sort of the view you see as you're coming down, traveling east on Lancaster Avenue. Sort of that's the view you have of the building. It's the street trees, which when we planted them 25 years ago were very small, have become very large, and you really don't see much of the building. And then the next photograph is really when you hit the driveway. That's the sort of the one view angle you have of the building. That's the existing building. That's A3K. And then A3L would be, again, as you're traveling east, as you're passing the building, as you begin to see the Starbucks building again to the east. And then A3N or M is the view of the Starbucks building, sort of standing on the sidewalk as you're heading east. And that is it.
Okay. When was the existing building constructed?
The existing building was constructed starting in late 1999 and completed in 2000.
Was it originally constructed for Prudential Fox and Roach?
It was.
At some point during their occupancy tenancy, did they change the operating name to Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Fox and Roach Realtors?
They did.
Okay. And do you know the date of the original lease with Fox and Roach?
August 19th, 1999.
Okay. Did the real estate office, known as, I'll just refer to as Berkshire Hathaway for simplicity, continue to operate at 216 East Lancaster Avenue, Wayne, PA, from late 1999, early 2000 until they closed the office earlier this year?
They did.
And when did their tenancy end?
At the end of February 28th, 2020.
Okay. Would you please describe the operation of the real estate office while it was there?
Sure. So it was open 7 days a week. Technically, their office hours were 9 to 5, even Saturday and Sunday. It was a brokerage office, so brokers came in and out whenever they wanted to. So they were in. Some were in early, some were in late. They did a lot of closings there, so the operating hours varied because of that also. They had at the peak 80 to 90 employees. A lot of offices, a lot of cubicles. At the peak, in the early to in the mid 2010s, they had, or early 2010s, they had almost 90 employees there. And they had regular, and they did have regular office meetings, depending on the time of year and how busy they were, bi-weekly or monthly, where everyone showed up at once.
Now, is there a single access point to and from Lancaster Avenue to the property?
There is, which I think you saw in the photographs.
Did that access point function adequately when the real estate office was in operation?
It did.
Is the property served by public water and sewer?
It is.
Is the parking lot adequately illuminated at night?
It is.
And are there some freestanding lights?
Yes, there are light poles along the parking lot. I think there are 3 light poles along the parking lot, plus there's illumination from the building as well.
And
under the soffits.
Okay, Dr. Cross is going to testify as to the nature of his proposed use, but you're familiar with his practice, are you not?
I am.
And do you believe that the proposed use as an office for Dr. Cross's medical use will be no more detrimental to the neighborhood and surroundings than the former real estate office?
I do. In fact, I think it will be an improvement.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to add?
Not at this moment, no.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have for this witness, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Petrezza. Mr. Ashkenazi, you made the statement there that you feel that the use as a medical office is going to improve the situation. Could you expand on that a bit? Why do you think it's going to improve?
Just the nature of the office as a real estate office, as most people know, residential real estate brokers are in and out of their office all day long. They're showing houses. So there was a ton of in and out traffic. And the reality is that, again, we'll let Dr. Cross testify about his business, but while he has people coming in on regular appointments for many things, I just don't believe they're going to be in and out as much. And certainly they're not going to be there. The office was very busy on Saturdays and Sundays. He will not generally be very busy on Saturdays and Sundays. I don't even know if he's intending to be open on Saturdays and Sundays at the moment, but I just think it's currently it was up until recently a busy, and brokers had access to it 24/7. So people would come in early, people would come in late. So I just think there'll be less traffic in and out. I think Dr. Cross's use will be very quiet. I do not think, I think the neighbors will not know they're there.
Okay, well, I'm sure Dr. Cross hopes they know that he's there in one sense, but I understand what you're saying. Thank you. Are there any other questions for this witness from members of the board?
Yeah. First off, what happened to Smokey Joe's?
Well, yeah, exactly. Those were the days.
But I'll tell you, I've been running this business for 20-something years, and that the amount of times I've had that question. But to be clear, I started running the business a year or two after, so I can't.
Okay.
So I can't speak to that.
Won't hold it against you. So
Okay.
I don't know if you're the person do you have any idea what the office hours will be for the new practice?
I think I do, but I'd rather let Dr. Cross talk about it.
Understood.
I don't want to speak for him.
Okay.
Okay, any other board questions? Okay, thanks. Mr. Petroza, still, please proceed.
Yes, I'd call Kevin J. Cross.
Norma, if you'd be kind enough to swear the witness.
If I can see him, Dr.
There we go.
Cross, okay? You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And would you please state your name and spell it for me, please?
Kevin J. Cross, KevinJayCross.
Thank you.
Dr. Cross, what is your current business address?
775 East Lancaster Avenue, Suite 230, Villanova, Pennsylvania, 19085.
And what is your occupation or profession?
I'm a plastic surgeon.
And can you please describe the medical office use you propose to make of the property at 216 East Lancaster Avenue?
We're proposing to have a medical office where we see and diagnose and treat patients, and a surgical facility to allow surgical treatment of a subset of those patients.
Okay. What are your typical days and hours of operation of the office?
Monday through Friday, we turn on the phones at 8 o'clock and we turn off the phones at 5 o'clock.
Okay. Would there be times when, let's say, a patient has surgery late in the afternoon, would it be possible the patient would have to have an extended recovery period beyond that?
Possibly, yes. There's a trend now for an extended recovery process as part of the wellness approach to patient care. And it's possible that a patient who's having a procedure later in the day would stay until that evening or potentially until the next morning.
And if that should occur, you're generally talking about a patient, and what support staff would be there as well?
It'd be 1 to 2 patients. Typically, the number of cases that are performed on a day would be 2 to 4 max, and generally about 25% of patients will fall into the extended recovery element. If the patient stays beyond the 5 o'clock period, they would have 1 nurse with them, and if they're going home that evening, would have a family member come and pick them up. Or if they spent the night, there would just be the nurse and the patient overnight until the next morning, where between 8 and 10 a.m., the family member would come to pick them up and the nurse would go home at that point.
All right. And how many operating rooms would there be in the surgical suite?
2.
And the surgical suite would also have sort of a pre-op and a post-op area?
Yep, a pre-op area to accommodate 2 to 3 patients, a post-operative area for the same, and then the potential for the patient who needed to be in the extended recovery area would have their own area for that to occur.
All right. On days when surgery is scheduled, how many surgeries would you expect to be done in a day?
Generally between 2 and 4.
And how many days a week would you expect to do surgery at this location?
Right now it would be 3, potentially up to 5.
On non-surgical days when you have office hours, how many patients would be seen in a typical day?
I see approximately 25 to 30 patients in an office hour day. There are other staff members who will see patients. Currently, on the busiest office hour day, we'll have between 30 and 40 patients. On a day where I'm in the operating room, that will drop down to sometimes 10 or less patients.
Okay. And on days when surgery is scheduled, I assume there would be either an anesthesiologist or a nurse anesthetist present. Is that right?
Yeah, an anesthesiologist always.
Okay. And is there also a dermatologist who is in the practice also?
Yeah, we have a dermatologist who specializes in hair preservation and hair restoration.
Okay. And how many days a week would he be at this location, would you say?
If he continues the same practice pattern that he has in our current location, he'd be in that office twice a week.
Okay. Are any retail products to be sold at the office?
About 50% of the people who come to the office purchase retail products, which include skincare, sun protection, camouflage makeup, hair products, and moisturizers, etc.
Okay. And is the existing 38-car parking lot adequate for your needs?
We would typically have at most around 15 staff members in the facility, and at any one time, at most around 10 patients. So even if every individual drove themselves, at most we'd have around 25 of 30 plus spots used.
Okay, so the 38 spaces would be more than adequate.
Yes.
How many?
May I ask a question? You said
Sure.
25 to how many spaces? There was background noise.
38 parking spaces, and he said the most would be 15 staff at any one time and 10 patients at any one time.
Currently, we have at most 8 staff members, but with the added procedure room, I'm probably overestimating, but I'm almost doubling the number of staff members just to be on the cautionary side.
Okay. And will your office generate noise, dust, or smoke which could potentially cause a nuisance to the neighbors?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to add, Dr. Cross?
No.
Okay. The board may have some questions. Those are all the questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Dr. Cross, you indicated that with respect to the sale of retail products, that there's some number of customers who would purchase retail products. Would they be coming to the facility specifically for the purpose of purchasing those products, or do they purchase them in conjunction with a previously scheduled visit?
About half and half. We have a number of patients who will come in once, get a sense of what product lines they like, and then they'll just come in for products. We have a number of customers who don't see us as patients, but hear about our product lines, speak to a friend who uses our products, and comes in solely for the purpose of purchasing those products.
Okay, great. One other question, and it has to do with the particular location that this building is located on in Wayne. Depending on which direction you're traveling on Lancaster Avenue, it is a fairly easy property to get to, or it can be a little challenging. Are your patients familiar with the Wayne area? Are they geographically dispersed so that they would be coming to Wayne but might not be familiar with Wayne and Wayne traffic patterns? I mean, give the board a sense of what you might expect to see in terms of traffic to the facility.
We see patients from a wide geographic range, but the patients who see us in the Villanova office currently are generally people from the mainline area. I have an office in Center City, so essentially anybody who comes to us from out of town, we route to the Center City office just because it's an easier location for them to find. Coming from Jersey or the city obviously is in Center City as well. So I would say 90 to 95% of the patients are patients who are from the main line and have been on Lancaster Avenue probably within a couple of days of coming to our current office more recently.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions. Do the other board members have questions, Jamie?
Good question. Do you provide services that are non-surgical, such as laser hair removal, or the way a regular salon might bring in someone with a medical background to do IPL?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Speaking to what is allowed in the Wayne Overlay District for beauticians and services such as that, is there a parallel to what you're offering?
Yeah, so I mentioned on the days that I am not there, there's approximately 10 patients that come in on the days that I'm there, if I'm seeing 25 to 30, there may be another 10 patients coming in. Those patients are coming in for skin care, for, as you mentioned, IPL, moisturizers, hydrofacials, or Botox, injectables. You may have heard of Restylane, Juvederm. The non-surgical in-office treatments and procedures that would be similar to what you'd see at a spa.
So they would be procedures that didn't require a doctor to be on duty, so to speak?
Yeah, treatments more than procedures.
Excellent. Thank you. That was my question.
Okay, if there are no other questions for Dr. Cross, Mr. Petroza, if you'd care to continue, that would be great.
Yes, I'd like to move for the admission of our exhibits.
Okay, without objection. And in terms, again, and you've made reference to the requirements for the special exception previously, but if you could just sum up by, again, making your best case for why a special exception is appropriate in this case, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. We're not, as you know, we're not asking for any variances, so it's just purely a special exception. And as I'm sure the board is aware, a special exception is neither special nor an exception, but a form of permitted use in the district. And the applicant's only burden is to prove that it satisfies the specific objective criteria in the ordinance. And quite frankly, there aren't a lot of specific objective criteria other than that it is a non-conforming use that we're replacing with another non-conforming use. Other than that, the other things, like it does mention traffic and those sorts of things, those are really, by case law, considered generalized injury to the public interest, and the burden is on protestants. Both the burden to come forward with the duty to come forward with evidence and the burden of persuasion is on protestants. So I think we frankly have a rather light burden, but I do think that we do meet the criteria. I did try to go through the general special exception standards in the ordinance that were relevant with Paul, and it's public water and sewer. We're not going to put any greater burden on the police or any of those sorts of things. A lot of them were not really relevant or germane, in my opinion. For example, there's one that talks about consistency with the comprehensive plan. Well, it's not going to be consistent with the comprehensive plan because it's a non-conforming use that's replacing another non-conforming use. The use itself is really consistent with uses that are permitted in the WBOD. It's just that they were trying to encourage the two-story buildings with the retail on the first floor and the office on the second floor. As you probably know, this is not a particularly easy time probably to find retail tenants or restaurant tenants, new ones. And we think this is a very good use. We think it's a very clean use. We don't think there'll be any disruption to the neighbors. And we do think, looking at the traffic issue, that it will be a reduction in the traffic from what had been there when it was a fully operating large real estate office. It was quite a while. I attended a settlement on the sale of my house there, and they had a number of settlements going on at the same time, and each settlement seemed to have somewhere between 6 and 8 people involved in it, as well as a number of agents there and people coming in looking at houses and things. So it was quite a busy office, and I don't think there'll be any disruption to the neighbors at all. There is a issue. If you look on the survey A2, you'll see there's a fence area and then a very large area beyond the wooden fence that is just a grass area, which provides a buffer to the R3 district back there. I think it's Midland Avenue, 200 block.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Kevin, I do not see any emails on in the public comment area. Okay, great, thank you. So at this point, would someone like to make a motion to get the discussion started on the request for the special exception?
John, it's Rich Weitzman. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We're comfortable at this point proceeding on the question of special exception. We don't have to, I don't know how to phrase my question. We're not worried that this is more of a variance request for the use. In other words, we are truly, because the real estate office went out in February of 2020, it's still, that use still carries forward. I guess that's the best way to ask my question.
It does. I can address that if you'd like me to, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Yeah, before we filed the application, I discussed the entire application with Kevin Pachansky, the zoning officer. Kevin agreed with me that the only thing we needed was the special exception. As far as the abandonment question, first of all, the use ceased February 28th, which is what, about 6.5 months from now. We had to file our application 30 days in advance. So we were pretty quick to come in with another use. But case law says in order to establish abandonment, two things have to happen. One is actual cessation of use, and the second thing is intent to abandon the use. And somebody has to prove the intent to abandon the use. And in this particular case, there's a presumptive period. I think in the township's ordinance, it's 1 year. Most ordinances are a year. There's a presumption of abandonment, but even then, you can come in and rebut that presumption by offering testimony that you didn't intend to abandon it. So, in my opinion, I don't think there's any question that it's just a special exception.
Thank you. Any other final comments before a motion? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion so we can begin deliberation?
Sure, it's Rich Weitzman. I'll make a motion to grant the special exception for purposes of replacing the real estate office for a medical office.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jamie beat you to it, George. Any board discussion? I'll jump in real fast. I believe that the applicant has satisfied its burden to establish a grant for a special exception, and I will be voting in favor of the motion. Any other comments?
No.
Hearing none, we'll call the vote. Jamie, in favor or opposed to the special exception?
In favor.
Rich?
In favor.
George?
In favor.
And I'm also in favor, so the vote is 4-0. Dr. Cross, good luck with your project, and thank you for your participation this evening. Mr. Petroza, thank you very much as well.
Thank you
very much.
Okay, the last item on the agenda is appeal number 3077. This is another opportunity for me to butcher the name of an applicant. In this case, the applicant, Markier Properties LLC. The property is located at the intersection of Sproul Road, which is Route 320, and Highfield Road, and zoned R2 residential. The applicant proposes to construct a home on the property with the front of the home located on Highfield Road. The side of the home will be located on Sproul Road. Applicant requests a variance from section 280-20C of the code for permission to construct the home within the front yard setback along Sproul Road. The front yard encroachment will be no more than that if the existing adjacent home on Sproul Road at the corner of Sproul Road and Deep Dean Road, which is 106 Deep Dean Road. Is the applicant ready to proceed?
You are. Yes.
Mr. Cornelia, good evening.
Evening. And Jim, you're here, right?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right.
Okay, this is a vacant lot, and the proposal is a corner lot as well. And the proposal is to construct a home on this lot, which is similar to the adjacent lot of which Mr. McPhillips or Markier Properties owns as well. Jim, Norma, if you can swear Jim in.
You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your full name and spell it for me, please.
James, James McPhillips, McPhillips.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim, where do you reside?
I live in Broomall.
And what is your relationship to Markier Properties LLC, the
I am-
owner's property?
Hold on, Nick. If you can just come forward and stop moving, because you're fading in and out, your voice. I can't hear you. Near your mic. Okay, I'm sorry.
Is that Nick or me?
So Jim, the question was, what is your relationship to Markier Properties?
Sole member of the LLC.
And you acquired the property in January of 2020?
Yes, that is correct.
And I have marked, and the board has an Exhibit A2. Is that a true and correct copy of the deed to the property?
That is correct, yes.
Also showing, and Ian, if you can go to A3, the aerial view of the site. I'm showing you what we've marked as A3. It indicates 106 Deep Dean, and it shows Sproul Road, correct?
Yes, correct.
And 106 Deep Dean, you mentioned that you do own that property?
I do own that property, yes.
And to the right of that, at the corner of Highfield and Sproul Road is another lot, and you own that property as well?
Yes, I do.
And that is a vacant lot, is that correct?
That is correct.
And it's your intent to construct a home on that lot?
That is correct, yes.
How would you characterize Sproul Road from a traffic standpoint?
A major arterial?
The proposed home being constructed at the intersection of Sproul and Highfield, where would the driveway be for that property?
The driveway would be on exit to Highfield Road.
And the front of the home will be oriented to the Highfield Road as well?
Yes, correct.
I'm going to show you, as we mentioned, Sproul Road is a very heavily traveled road, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Now, if we refer to the sketch plan or the site plan A4, please. Ian, can you, yeah. So showing what's been marked as A4, which is an engineer survey of the property. To the left is the existing home, is that right?
That is correct.
And then to the right is the proposed lot that you intend to construct the home on.
Yes, that is correct.
The existing home, is the distance from Sproul Road 33.5 feet?
Yes, it is.
And is the proposed home also 33.5 feet from Sproul Road?
Yes, it is.
The existing home also is non-conforming as to the rear yard setback. Would that be accurate?
That is correct, yes.
But your proposed home will conform to all setbacks except for that front yard on Sproul Road?
Yes, that is correct.
Would it be also accurate to say that the width of the home on Deep Dean is 69 feet fronting on Deep Dean Road?
Yes, that is correct.
And I believe that the frontage on Highfield for your home would be approximately 46 feet.
That is correct, yes.
So significantly less than what is on the adjacent lot.
Significantly, yes.
And as we noticed here, your lot, your proposed lot is a corner lot, which requires 40-foot front yard setbacks.
Yes, that is correct.
And will the home that you're constructing actually be similar in square footage as the existing home at 106 Deep Dean, and even maybe even slightly smaller?
Yes, very similar, or maybe a hair smaller, like you said, yes.
Now, also going to show you what's been marked as A5. Again, that's an aerial. and it shows the Deep Dean home. It's a little closer view. And so the point of this is that your home will be very consistent with the existing home already on Sproul Road as far as the setbacks are concerned.
Yes.
At
that is
least
correct.
as the setback on Sproul Road is concerned.
Yes.
Again, it shows a pretty heavily buffered area and actually shows that across from Sproul Road, across from where the front yard setback impingement would be, is heavily buffered, and you can't even see any homes across the street from Sproul Road.
No, you cannot. There's a lot of hedge, a lot of trees, a lot of shrubs on the property.
Now, also going to show you what's been marked as A6. Can you rotate? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ian. Showing you what's been marked as A6, what does that represent?
I'm sorry?
What does A6 represent?
That is the proposed home to be built. That's approximately 46 feet wide.
Have you spoken to the neighbors?
I have. I have spoken to the neighbors in the immediate area and with no opposition whatsoever from any of the homeowners. Everyone was on board completely.
And we have established A7 is a petition with signatures indicating their agreement with your proposed development.
Yes, that is correct.
That's all I have.
Okay, questions from the board? I'll start with one. What would the aggregate reduction in the square footage of the house be if it was constructed in conformity with the setbacks?
It would be 6.5 times approximately 45.
Times 2, presumably.
Yes.
And is the position here that it's not possible to construct a property within the setbacks?
Well, it's not feasible and it's consistent with the rest of the neighborhood.
Well, I'm sorry, Nick, I'm sorry. Let me hear from the witness.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. You're telling, can you build a building within the setbacks?
As Nick had said, yes, it is more feasible with this. It's more in line with the existing area, the adjacent lot, and try to keep this square footage of the west side of Sproul Road there, just in that immediate little pocket, to stay the same with the neighborhood.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. McPhillips.
Very much.
Nick, you're another witness?
No, I have no further witnesses, John.
I'm sorry, I was on mute, John.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
I was wondering
George.
if James can talk about the title issues that were raised in some letters that we received.
Yeah, I was going to get to that, George. And we've seen subsequent, we've seen some back and forth on that. So I was going to raise that during public comment because that's really how it came in.
Sure.
Yes.
But stay handy, sir, because you will have the chance to comment on it in just a second. Sorry, George.
Sure.
Okay. So, Mr. Cornelia, you indicated there are no other witnesses on this?
No other witnesses, John. I've just asked the exhibits to be part of the record, please.
Okay, without exception. Now, we're getting now to public comment, and let me print it out what we received this afternoon. The entire set of materials that we received from one member of the public submitting public comment to the email address will be included in the record. To summarize them, because each of the board members has received those, I believe counsel for the applicant has received the materials we received as well.
John, just to let you know, I received those materials probably like 5 to 7. So
okay.
Fortunately, we were last on the list, so I was able to go into the county records and find out what was going on.
Right, and the essence of the public comment is that the applicant does not have valid title to the property. There were allegations made in the materials that were submitted by the commenter to the effect that the transfer of the property to the applicant was invalid, and that the commenter wanted us to suspend the proceedings here, or in the alternative, to deny the application because of the fact that the applicant has no title to the property. That and Mr. Cornelia has responded, but that is really not within the zoning hearing board's jurisdiction. It's not what we do. There are procedures in place for quieting title or resolving any other differences about who has valid title to real property in the county, and those remedies are available to the commenter should she wish to avail herself of them. But given, and as George pointed out, given the fact that the comments were of a nature that could be viewed as fairly critical of the applicant here, I would now ask George to ask his question.
I'm sorry, you're asking me a question?
No, I'm asking you to now ask the question that you wanted to ask 5 minutes ago.
Oh, I'd just like to hear their thoughts on any title issues. I mean, I see the deed is from, the LLC to the LLC. Was there a subdivision on this property, or?
I can go through that, George.
Okay.
So going back, and just to talk about title for a little bit, these were always 2 separate folio numbers. So there was no subdivision. If there was a subdivision, it was years and years ago. It was always 2 separate folio numbers, even when the person did own it, who's complaining here this evening, and it's continued as 2 separate folios and now 2 separate deeds for this property. What happened was in 2012, a foreclosure action was commenced by Douche Bank against the then owners. Finally, after multiple delays in 2018, a foreclosure order was entering judgment in favor of Douche Bank and also granting them foreclosure on the property. That was appealed to Superior Court. Superior Court denied the appeal. The applicant then filed for a writ. He got a writ and went to sheriff's sale, and Douche Bank took it at sheriff's sale from the sheriff. Eventually, 2 years later, Douche Bank sold it to Markier Properties. There is a deed that I had sent to Mr. Kachansky, Mr. Economides, and I believe Mr. Riley may have it, indicating a deed directly from Douche Bank to Markier for both properties. Since that time, Markier has also started an ejectment action in 2018. I believe early September, just a couple weeks ago, they finally got a writ of execution in possession. So I believe they're proceeding with that as well.
Okay, but the testimony here today is Markier owns the fee ownership of that specific.
Yes.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
And Mr. Cornelia, is it also accurate that among other litigation actions, the validity of the transfer from Deutsche Bank to your client was contested in federal court through a bankruptcy action, or did that relate to the Deep Dean property? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it related to both these properties.
Okay.
And it was contested and it was eventually removed.
And it went up to the Third Circuit and was denied. And okay. Any other questions about the title aspects or any other aspects of the application? Okay, hearing none. Kevin, I'm going to check again to see if there are any other.
Chairman, I don't see anything on my end.
Okay, great. And I don't see anything either. So that takes care of the public comment. At this point, would someone like to make a motion to get deliberations started?
I'll make a motion to approve the application for relief.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any board discussion? Yeah, the only comment I would make is that I understand the argument that the placement of the property or the placement of the building on the property is consistent with the immediately adjoining property next door, but I'm not. And again, it's a dimensional variance, so I'm not going to go to the ends of the earth on hardship. But were there objecting owners that or adjoining neighbors that would have been objecting, I might look at that a little bit closer. One other, I'm sorry, I should have done this before. Nick, you had made, you had indicated that you did not want the public commenter to be permitted to be an adverse party in this action. Do you want to renew that request now?
Yeah, so the request that she be denied all standing.
Absent a showing that there's some other nexus with the property in question by the complaining, the commenting member of the public, I am inclined to grant Mr. Cornelia's motion that the commenter be denied party status for purposes of this application. Okay, now getting back, sorry about that, Nick. Getting back to the discussion of hardship, like I said, there's not a lot of showing of hardship here. It would just be a smaller house, notwithstanding the fact that it's consistent with its most immediate neighbor. But I'm not going to die on that hill on this one. So if there are there any other comments? I'm sorry.
And none.
Okay, no other comments. We'll call the vote. Rich, are you in favor of granting the requested relief?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And I am as well. So the vote is 4-0. Good luck with the project. And I believe that's it for us, Mr. Cornelia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your participation this evening. And that is it for this evening. And we've had so much fun. We're going to do this again next week on Tuesday, the 22nd. So, we'll see you then. Otherwise, have a great weekend and be safe. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Night.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.